Well, good morning, and it's a decent morning. We're not going to get any sun today by the look of things. There's going to be cloud all over the place, and it is cool, 12 degrees. The breeze, though, isn't that great. It's described as a gentle breeze today. So if it's a gentle breeze, then I'm happy to say that the chill factor won't be that great, and it should feel like 12 degrees, perhaps even warmer if we feel like trotting around. Keith Hayes with Mirador Television out of Lewes, and this morning, God willing, and also the technology, I shall be joined by Robert McDonald, an old friend, a school friend. We've known one another for, letting on about 50 years. And we've maintained over the years, on and off, good contact. And Robert became a very successful industrialist and introduced training methods for which he was given, what should we say, recognition by the monarch. So a man of some depth and experience, and hopefully I'm keeping my eye on the little thing that is supposed to come up and let him join me. Certainly the link has gone through. He says he's got it. So now it's down to the technology of StreamYard, which is the technology we use at the moment. Let's see how they make out this morning. We have had some problems, but hopefully we're not we're okay. So I've just I lost internet last night, and I did all the things that they said, and I went through and eventually tapped on, and it said, no, you got a huge problem, and so on. This morning it was working again, and I've just got a little thing that's come through on my phone and said you have an expert, an engineer who's going to arrive in 2 days' time. And now I suppose I better tell them that it looks as if it's all right, or should I expect it to go wrong again and leave it? It's a difficult decision, isn't it? Decisions. Over the weekend, the Remembrance Sunday, well, there's several things to do with that. First of all, the Queen had to pull out of going to the cenotaph at the last moment with what is called back strain. Now, I understand back strain because I've got it almost permanently. It happens to all of us, doesn't it? But are there alarm bells? Because she's been rather unwell for about 3 weeks now. And she is our head of state. And I keep on saying that on this program. She is our head of state. And that, in any country in the world, when your head of state is suffering ill health, is a worry, because your whole constitution, in our case, an unwritten constitution, depends upon a tiered structure, starting with the president, then you've got to worry. And I mention that because the Remembrance Sunday at Lewes Town Hall, outside Lewes Town Hall at the War Memorial, was very colourful, and indeed it was very warming to see so many people there. What I don't understand is those people that are anti, if you like, they don't particularly care for these sort of things and remembrance of the fallen. That's fine. That's entirely your decision and your option. And in a free country, we can accept your point of view. But a couple and several people sort of march through right in the middle so that they can be seen pushing a pram and glaring at everybody. Now, we're not questioning your motives as to why you don't want to support this, but don't question ours. You know, that's the trouble. You're so damn sure that you're right. And this is a problem right throughout the country. Is the protesters, the wokes, they believe that they are right. Oh, that was a good start, wasn't it? Local news, Friday, a houseboat caught fire in New Haven Harbour. Nobody injured, I don't think, but there's one lady who escaped the smoke by the skin of her teeth. And generally speaking, it's been a relatively quiet weekend in Lewes and district. we always say Lewes and the district, although the district is a bit strange, really. It embraces some, not others, and I suspect that there will be some changes when the I think the commission, anyway, that looks into electoral reform reports back. I get the hiccups just about this time every morning. It must be that either I have a coffee or I don't have a coffee, but I've tested both, and I still get the hiccups. Anyway, hopefully a warm day. Let's now look at what's going on in the world through the headline of newspapers and the Daily Telegraph. Remembrance terror plot, 3 held after fatal explosion. Right, there's from gathering the bits and pieces this morning, there was an explosion in Liverpool outside a hospital. There's a brave taxi driver recognized that there were explosives in charge of people in his where are we? Yeah, in his cab, and he locked the doors. A very brave man, and the explosion went off, and there were some people killed. He was badly damaged. He's in hospital, and there have been 3 arrests. So we that is the main headline for many of the newspapers this morning. Is terror returns. The Poppy Day bomb rocks maternity hospital. That's the Daily Mail. The Daily Express. The palace calms fears over the Queen's health. Its royal lead tributes to the fallen. As royals lead tributes to the fallen. Sorry, some of these smaller print. So they're going to read on the trot. Terror probe into Poppy Day blast, of course. The Daily Express. The Times. 3 held by terror police after fatal blast. The same story. And there's a terror attack. There was no terror attack at the cenotaph. That passed off peacefully, as it did around the country. I think, to be quite honest with you, I was finding that the people who were, what should we say, neutral about whether they should turn up to these things, seem to have decided that yes, this is something that's worthy, and our cenotaph or war memorial had a very, very good crowd, and all the now Robert McDonald is again having problems with the connection, and I have no idea why. And what I may do is I may actually abandon for a minute or two to get hold of Robert. But let's see if we can just do something about it first. But let me just finish my wrap up of the newspapers, because the Mirror goes after a terror probe after taxi blast. Metro, the London paper, health fears for the Queen. They decide that the worry that the Queen not turning up to the cenotaph was the most important story. The Guardian, frustration at India and China over watering down climate deal. It stays with the world leaders getting together last week to try and hammer out how we're going to handle global warming, and saying that India and China have made a deal and then went back and watered it down immediately. And the Financial Times, the business groups add to chorus of dismay at watered down COP deal. So that is causing a great concern across the country. And the rail plans scaled down in blow for levelling up. Heaven only knows. Rail plans scaled down in blow for levelling up. In other words, the high-speed rail link to the north, it says the government is going to cancel it. It's a huge, huge project, and it costs a lot of money. And perhaps what we've done is we bust the bank on COVID. And the Daily Star, snow way out. There are fears that we're going to get an icy blast from the we're going to get an icy blast from the Arctic, and it's going to get very cold, and the chances of snow, and the snow in November, very rare. In fact, snow down here, very rare anyway. So if we do, that will burst something. Right, let's just see if we can do something about this, because it is getting very frustrating, and I hope that, let's see, hang on. Right. So I hope you can see me while we go about our daily task of trying to get hold of Robert. Let's make sure we got the link right. There we go. Well, let's have another go, and hope that this time it will work. The link will work. If for some reason this seems a weakness in our system, and perhaps what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to abandon the people that are providing us with this service, get another one, and learn how to use it. These things are not easy to master, so I'm a little cautious about dumping one for another. But if we can't actually get our people to join us, then we are not doing a very good job. Let's just try. No, it's just silly nonsense. It is just absolutely silly nonsense, and we'll just have to hope that this last one. And he's certainly got the message, all right. And why? Then it's up to StreamYard. And I can't do anything about it while I'm on the air. And this is very disappointing. And I think that we're going to have to bang the drum now, because this is the third time that we've brought in our experts, and they're getting fed up with it. They're getting up early in the morning to join us and to see what's going on. And it is simply the system isn't working. And if it's not working, it's not much good to us, because we're losing faith. So I don't mind calling it as it is. I've just put up a little thing over the weekend that says the bullshit stops at the door of Mirador's television studio. We're not prepared to put up with it, and we're not prepared to put up with it. You give us a nonsense and say that this will work and it doesn't, then you have no right to put it up and charge money for it. And we should expect a substantial rebate. And there is no reason why small businesses like ourselves shouldn't come knocking at the door. And if, in fact, we don't get satisfaction, then we can say to the big boys, we'll name you and shame you. And quite happy to do that, because there are lots of little people who buy into this. And if it won't do what it says, then, and it's not our fault, that we know, because we had long discussions with these people. Robert, I'm hoping that we can do something. Unfortunately, my techie people, they're light workers. They love working at midnight, but get them up at this hour of the morning, and you've got a problem. Right, okay, let's continue just a little bit. Then one of the things that I posted on the weekend is that when you read social media, everybody is so damn righteous about the government and the politicians and so on and so forth. Some people say, you're naughty and you're sleazy. That's because you're a conservative. And then the other lot say, you're naughty, you're conservative, you're sleazy. That's because you're Labour or Liberal or whatever. Why you politicize it? It's got nothing to do with the party. What it's got to do with the fact that we've got a whole bunch of politicians that are on a gravy train, and they're not prepared to change. They're not prepared to reform. And even when they get caught and some of the things are reformed, they actually vote them down. His MP's expenses were such a scandal 2 years ago. Everybody was scurrying for cover, and was anything done about it? No, it was not. And it really is getting beyond the pale. That people sort of say it's their side, it's their side. It's not. It's all of them. And until we, oh gosh, I'm just about to swear, reform. That is a word that politicians hate. Locally, I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, at the last full meeting of the old council, is the present people in charge, the Greens and the Lib Dems and so on, were hopping up and down because of the cabinet system. How awful it was. Now, what do they say? Well, it does have some virtues, you see, because we're in charge. Yeah, you've got pockets as big as anybody else, haven't you? No matter which political party you are. His politicians are politicians, and I've lost faith in all of them. All of them. Frankly, I would change the rules this way. You cannot qualify to stand for Parliament at any level until you have worked 3 years in some ordinary occupation, so that you start to understand the people you represent, start to understand their difficulties, their needs, and so on, instead of your own. You keep on looking at yourselves. You keep on saying, what we need, and you justify it. You're crybabies, all of you. Oh, we can't do this. Well, the rest of us have to. I'm 50 quid short on what I owe this month. I don't know where I'm going to. I haven't got a bank of mom and dad anymore. Not what I really ever did. So when people politicize corruption, and then you can say, Keith, what do you know about corruption? Well, I know quite a bit about it, actually, because I spent quite a lot of time in Romania. And I was actually watching some people getting on the bus the other day. And I thought, Romania is held up as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. It is dreadful. And they're right, it is dreadful. But the fact of the matter is, we're not much better in this country. Pigs in the trough, big snout in the trough. Unfortunately, we like to point the finger, don't we? We like to point the finger. There's politicians all over the world. It doesn't matter whether it's an authoritarian regime or whether it's a democratic regime. Until we have reform, we're going to have corruption. And nobody wants reform. To me, it's the most simple thing in the world. There are laws and rules and regulations in this country governing how I pay my taxes, how I claim for expenses, and the things that I can and cannot do when it comes to my revenue. Why not just apply that to the House of Commons and be done with it? Well, not just the House of Commons, to the whole political structure and be done with it. It's very simple. You can hear the belly laughs going around, but we're different. Yeah, well, you're not different. You're workers like us, and that's your profession. And you should be treated like us in any other way. Reform, don't pull our legs until we actually see you doing something to reform. We're not that impressed. And if you want to know why there's a general distrust of politicians amongst the public, that's the reason why. You keep on doing things for you and not for anybody else. You think about it, because that distrust is going to come and it's going to hit you. It's going to bite you in the ass, to use a popular expression. You have been warned by me, and I see that Robert is manfully trying to get hold of and use this link, and it just isn't working. And right, I thought that might have been a news. Anyway, let's do something nice. After I've had a rant, let's do something nice, because looking through some of the programs that we did prior to lockdown, what we did one called Liquid Poetry. It's fronted by Annie Verrill, and Annie is no longer with us. She's gone on to greater things, as indeed I hope the people from Mirador do. I don't go on to greater things because I'm too bloody old. But I like to think that perhaps we can give people a boost in their careers. But Fergus Woods, who is the other exponent of our wine program, is coming back. In fact, he should be on tomorrow if we resolve this link problem. It's one of those things that is most irritating. It is the most irritating thing of the lot. But anyway, Fergus is a delightful chap. And if you want to talk about private enterprise, Fergus raised money to start his wine business because he knows something about wine by actually being a waiter. And I met him at the Wild Bill Hickok's, the restaurant that closed down recently in Lewes. He told me what he was doing, and we stayed in touch. And sure enough, once he got started, I said, will you come on and do a wine program for us? And he said, yes. Well, here's a little sample of it, because if anything, we really need a bit of a giggle now, because this Monday morning has started with the usual bloody blues, and nothing is working. The only thing is, I remember when I was talking to a British Airways chap, several years ago, but he said, all of us are on tenterhooks on a Monday morning because a pilot gets into an aeroplane and he hits the button to start the aeroplane, and the aeroplane has decided it's got a headache and it's not going to go to work, and then he throws the whole thing out. Well, this system has decided to have a headache, and it does regularly on a Monday. This might give you a headache too, but let's just join Annie and Fergus.
Hello and welcome to our third episode of Bottled Poetry. Lovely name, isn't it? I love it. So this episode, like the previous two, is all about wine. However, this time we shall try a white wine. And I have the lovely Fergus with me again, who is the founder of Camino del Vino, and he knows absolutely everything there is to know about wine. So, if you like the look of the wine we are featuring, don't hesitate to give him a shout, an email, a call, whatever you like. Welcome, Fergus. Thank you very much again for being here. And this time...
No, thank you for having me.
This time, it's all about wine. Certain type of wine.
It is about white wine. Yeah, we've done two reds now. We're going to move on to a fantastic white wine, I think, as well. But I'm quite biased because I'm a big Riesling fan anyway. But yeah, to give it away.
There we go. As you mentioned, it's all about Riesling today. Anton Finkenauer. There we go. I was trying to read it backwards and I just couldn't.
Yes. So from my understanding, these originally, when the vineyard was, it was basically the name Anton Finkenauer comes from the winery, which were owned by two brothers, called Anton and Carl Finkenauer, and they're a bit like the Adidas brothers. They fell out and they wanted to do different things, so they split off and did their own little things with their vineyards. But since they've obviously passed away and the two vineyards have now come together, and they clearly produce a beautiful looking wine, and it tastes great as well.
The next thing I've noticed is a foreign word, trocken.
Yeah.
Trocken, which means...
Trocken means dry in German.
Dry, right.
So this is very like, a lot of German wines are they're quite unusual to the general consumer, or they used to be. So because Riesling can come in a variety of styles. So it can be trocken, for instance, but it can also go from like a medium sweet wine to a very sweet wine. So trocken is a very, we know straight away as soon as we see trocken that this is going to be dry. We're not going to be fooled and have a sweet wine, basically.
I can tell you that I will remember this word from now on. So if I ever look for a Riesling and I want a dry one, I know what to look for.
Look at trocken. But yeah,
This is
there are
great.
other, so for instance, in like Trocken, so this particular white wine, so it's from, if you look on the back, you should see a little, basically this wine comes from a region called Nahe, Nahe.
Yeah.
And this is what's known in the wide world as a PDO, which is a protected designation of origin region. So Nahe is one of Germany's 13 PDOs, and produces essentially really great wines from that sort of area.
Because I do have some little notes. Well, I say little, but
Yes.
it's not that little. So what's the Predictswein? Predictswein? I'm so sorry. My German is terrible.
Predictswein.
Yeah.
Yes, Predictswein.
So what is that then?
So Predictswein goes by, we're really diving in. Predictswein, basically, because Riesling can come in a different different type of styles. When I say styles as well, I mean it's very dependent on the level of sweetness. In Riesling, because it varies so much in styles, from your Trockens to your very sweet wines, the German wine authorities basically have come up with another classification of determining the amount of sugar that's going to be in this wine. Absolutely, I love
It's
it.
wonderful. Just ask the tough questions.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So before I very rudely want to open this, is there anything else you would like to tell me about it?
Oh, wow.
So a lot of Germany's wine growing regions are based in the southwest of the country. They're very close to the French border as well, so it benefits from the Alps as well, the slopes from the Alps. And it's very cool climate along this area. So it's along the 50-degree latitude level of the globe, which is sort of the highest that the wine regions should really go in terms of what they're trying to produce. Because anything higher from that, they won't benefit from the sun, which helps them grow. But yeah, it's just where they fall basically.
Well, if you want to find out more about wine, tomorrow, Ferguson, if we have to abandon this particular piece of software, we will, and we will say why. And if it's our fault, and we just tested every way possible, and it doesn't seem to be anything to do with us, then I'm afraid people are selling substandard goods. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff comes from the States. It makes no difference to us screaming, but we've got our unit in the United States who are quite prepared to scream. May I just say that at the beginning of December, so many of you will have seen or been introduced to Melissa Conte, who is our New York producer for Mirador. She's a producer announcer and reporter. She had a very distinguished career and won awards with I think it was with one of the major networks in the United States. But I met her when she was the two of us were when she was the co-anchor on Morning and Nightly Business Report, the PBS business program that went coast to coast, of which I was privileged to be the London anchor for almost 10 years. She will be in Lewes, and she wanted to see the home of Tom Paine, but also the home of Mirador, because she struggled with us and gone through the bad times, keeping Mirador going so that we start to thrive. And now we thrive, and suddenly we can't do things that we're supposed to do. And it's a very unhappy situation. And it ain't our fault, Gov, not this time. Ain't our fault. But once again, we're going to have to spend precious time when we should be doing other things finding out about it. Okay, let's. Poor Robert is busy emailing all over the place, trying to get in touch with somebody who can show him how to resolve the link, if that's possible. And the big problem is that I can't go off the air to do it. But perhaps what we're learning in this thing is all the hype. It's the hype of the technology people. You can do this alone. There is no problem. People are actually broadcasting to the world with just a phone and sitting on a hump in a backyard. Bullshit. I'm sorry, when I get angry, my language takes away. That is balls. It doesn't work that way. It often goes wrong, and you need somebody who knows what they're talking about to fix it. Because one of you can't just say, "Oh, I'll come back in a day or two after it's fixed." And that's what the techies seem to think. Once again, like politicians, they don't ever seem to have worked in the real world. They're all down in basements hoping that they'll become the next Microsoft. Well, that's not good enough for those of us who depend upon it and who depend upon a fairly simple approach. And we don't want to hear how much you've improved it. We want to know that what we've initially bought is going to work. And often it does, and then they improve it and it doesn't. So I'm really on a rant about almost every section of society except our own this morning. Oh dear, Keith. You do have fun on these occasions, but our guests don't, and our associates don't, and our colleagues don't. They go to a great deal of trouble and time to set up to do a good job for our viewers. And we're let down time after time after time because of the technology. And it's not on. It is not on, as I say. Right, okay. Well, there was Fergus and Annie Verrill, talented young lady, and I'm sure that what we might do is when she makes a fortune out of her future broadcasting career, that we'll ask for a handout. How about the sponsorship ready? In the meantime, Fergus, who is a very talented young man when it comes to wine, is helping us by becoming part of the team. But even so, if tomorrow morning I can't get hold of him, doesn't help, does it? Okay. So here we go with where are we? I was looking for the time. Oh, I have to look at the time over here. It's 8:32. We have been on the air for 32 minutes now. So let me just remind you about the weather. And it is going to be reasonably chilly today, only 12 degrees. That's going to be the top temperature. Mind you, it doesn't start from a very low base. I think it's starting from about 7 or 8 degrees. There's not a great range. What you probably feel when you go outside now isn't going to be much different to what you'll feel at lunchtime. But there's going to be lots of cloud, and sometimes cloud cover enables us to stay warm. It seals the heat in as it rises from the earth, so it's sealed in by the cloud. So perhaps that will help during the day. And a gentle breeze. Oh, I love the breezes. I really do. A gentle breeze. We always have use such nice words. The breeze and I. Oh, most of you won't remember that. The breeze and I, Caterina Valenta. Oh, when I was about 15, I was in love with Caterina Valenta. We didn't have a top 10 in those days, but we did have stars like Frankie Lane, whom I was very privileged to meet and actually become a friend of in his later years. There was I saw something a movie on, and I didn't get a chance to watch it. I think it's either A Song of Sixpence or Sixpence for Something with Tommy Steele. Oh boy, and we used to make idiots of ourselves pretending to play the guitar to Tommy Steele. So there are lots of bits and pieces around that can trigger memories. Anyway, how did I get onto that? Caterina Valenta, going back, Jealousy, it was her thing. Oh, The Breeze and I, that's right. The Breeze and I was her a great favorite. And to me, it stacks up today as much as it did then. I love listening to that record, The Breeze and I. Take a listen, Caterina Valenta. But anybody under 120 can't remember. But we did have stars back then. All right, now it is coming up to where we go, 8:35, 8:36, and the football world, I suppose, is going a bit silly. And the deputy Labour leader, lady, whose name I can't remember until I look at it, and why should I? She's not always in the Angela Rayner was on the Andrew Marr show yesterday. A man of some considerable literary skill, I may say, Andrew Marr, and a thinker. And he asked her about the fact that the Labour Party have been accusing the Conservatives of sleaze, which backs up what I said earlier, the plague on all their houses. But then he pointed out two areas of sleaze which Keir Starmer had been, or alleged sleaze, had been guilty of, taking consultancy jobs while he was an MP, even before he was leader of the Labour Party. And she stumbled and talked about something else, which is the way that politicians handle these difficult questions. It's getting disheartening to hear people accuse. I've just got a note in from Robert saying he can't connect, and can we try later? And indeed we can. The moment I can get technical help, we will do a special little program with Robert. So don't go away, Robert. Don't even go back to bed because you'll fall asleep. And then I won't be able, I'll have to rouse you and you'll be grumpy. I don't like people who are grumpy first thing in the morning. I don't mind shouting. I don't mind shouting at all. But grumpy, no. So getting back to my anti-sleaze and anti-corruption. One of the things that people don't understand is zero tolerance. Oh, that's dreadful. That's militaristic. Oh, how can you go zero tolerance? Well, I'll tell you, in perhaps one of the most corrupt countries, certainly was, if not still, in the European Union. And there are things that I chaired and got into some depth in this. Is Romania, and what we discovered when we were doing our, if you want, as journalists, due diligence, is that everybody thought their own government was corrupt, and indeed it was. There is every evidence to suggest that it still is. But they sort of, the general public tutted, and isn't that dreadful? But we don't know what to do about it. And then when we asked them how they got their driving licenses, by paying the inspector €4 to get a license. In some instances, they were done as Christmas gifts within families, where the family member worked for the vehicle licensing center. And until we opened their eyes, this was corruption as much as stuffing pound notes, £5 notes now, I suppose, into your pocket. There was no realization amongst the general public that they were as corrupt as their leaders. And I don't think that there is much here in this country to realize that we all do it, even if it's only tipping a head waiter to give us a better seat, to turf out people from the seats that we would like. Thank you very much. It's endemic. Oh, you say, Keith, you can't expect us to be all goody two-shoes. Oh, no, I don't. That's the problem, I suppose. I don't expect it. And in some instances, in some quarters, you would have people who say, oh, that's sissy. It's very manly to be able to pay a few bob and get something that other people can't. No, it's not. But by the same token, is if we're going to fold to being thought of as less macho or less sophisticated or whatever, it's just as bad. It's just as bad. Who cares whether you're sophisticated, except perhaps a few friends, and those people you might have the lovely meal exclusively at a restaurant where you actually hijacked the head waiter to give you the private room that is better than any other private room. And that's just a start of it. All right. Okie dokie. Let us go back just for a minute, if I can. Let's just go through the headlines again, because I did actually rush it a little bit. And the question of terrorism raises its head after a taxi blew up in Liverpool outside a hospital. And it was there was a very brave driver who saw that the people he was carrying had got a bomb, and he locked the doors. So he could do it centrally. He locked the doors and said, "No, we're going to stay here until some coppers come." Unfortunately, the bomb went off. It killed some people in the cab, not the heroic driver, I understand, although he's in hospital, as one would expect. It brought to a head the fact that terrorism is as drastic, as awful way of warfare as any. And I must confess, as I do get a bit upset when I hear the do-gooders who decide that some soldiers misbehaved in Northern Ireland. But of course, or elsewhere actually, but I'm particularly interested in Northern Ireland because I lived through those troubles. I lived on the ground there. I did it. I did the things that other people wouldn't do. Well, some others did. I'm not suggesting I was unique. But it gave me an opportunity to see the parts that needed refreshing that others can't see. And terrorism is just an awful, awful form of warfare, because you hold a whole population to ransom, to hostage. And when you're found out, and when the army get heavy, then you complain as if you'd done nothing. Your cause justified it. Well, if the ends justify the means, as far as terrorism is concerned, let's all pack our bags and go home. But we have pilloried and stalked, the government has anyway, veterans who I watched march yesterday very proudly. Those veterans who served in Northern Ireland. And we shouldn't do it. We simply shouldn't do it. And that is, when I say, and I follow the little motto that I put up, is cut the bullshit. It stops at the door of Mirador television studio. Okay, what you can do is you can say, Keith, you're feeding the bullshit. And I am perfectly prepared to debate and open up forums so that we can get to the bottom of it. But we've gone into a society where, because it's so easy to point the finger, we point the finger, and eventually we get so heavy that the authorities capitulate when they know very well they shouldn't. So we actually don't care. If we think that a particular point of view or an opinion has virtue, we'll express it. We're not just plucking things out of the air. Our opinions, and yours for that matter, if they are based on fact, and we can look and recognize that it's open to debate, fine. But we are all so dogmatic. We all think that we're so right, and that everybody else should bow down and say how wonderful we are for taking this point of view. So one thing I'll tell you is I don't have many suits left now since I moved. So I'm not going to stick my arse to any pavement to get my point of view. I can do what I always have, and that is be the mouth that roared. I always remember when I first came to Lewes, and I went to the Con Club and met some very interesting people there. And on one occasion, one lady, a very, very pleasant lady, and she's remained a good friend, but she introduced me and said, this is Keith Hayes. He's a loudmouth. I have been all my life. But to me, that is the way that you can express and raise legitimate doubt about what's happening in our community, whether it's locally or whether it's nationally. And that's the way everybody should raise your voices, not your bums on a pavement, so that even people getting to hospital can't get there. That's rubbish. That's nonsense. Right, he said. Where are we? We were reviewing the papers again for you. The Daily Telegraph was a remembrance terror plot. 3 held after a fatal explosion. The Daily Mail goes on the same thing. Poppy Day bomb rocks maternity hospital. I mean, what a choice. A maternity hospital. But also, what a hero. Because believe me, I can tell you from experience, if you are in a situation where you think there's a bomb next door that's likely to go off, is you are on eggs. Break an egg. You're walking on eggs. It is not a nice experience at all. And if it happens regularly, it gets even less nice. So that driver must have known that bomb could have gone off. His last moments, well, he actually hasn't died yet. I say yet because apparently he's very badly injured. If you're in that sort of blast, so you would be. But terror is the worst form and the most cowardly form of warfare, if you like, because, for instance, the IRA would say volunteers who died in the service of freeing their country or whatever. They thought that, and indeed they called their operatives soldiers. But the estimates were that there were probably less than 150 terrorists in Belfast. And bearing in mind that they also held the United Kingdom to ransom, so a few million people is just 150 people who are able to do that through terror. No army can do that when it's marching. No army can do that at all. So there we go. Let's go back to the papers. The Daily Express. The palace calms fears over the Queen's health. Right. Okay. The Queen pulled out of after publicly saying that she was going to attend the cenotaph yesterday for the memorial service, which are very touching services, I may say. How does it start? We who grow not old. We who grow not old. Those are the people that gave their lives. And that was what we were celebrating yesterday. And it's a very sensitive moment with poppies. And there have been people who tried to disrupt them with displays of defiance. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be. It all comes up again. And white poppies and all that sort of. So yesterday, it looked to me as if there was a strengthening of the position of, yes, we are becoming more grateful. And despite the hardcore who try to deny us our history and pull down statues and do all sorts of simple things, as if that's going to cure a problem, yesterday was a monument to those people who say, put it in perspective. I doubt if anybody I don't know how many there were yesterday, the Lewes Memorial, my guess would be anywhere between 500 and 600 and 700. It was a very, very good crowd and a very, as I say, a moving ceremony. But I doubt if there's anybody there that would glorify war. What we're doing is we're remembering those people who, because there was a war, gave their lives and sometimes gave them in the most awful, awful circumstances. Anyway, the Queen wasn't able to attend. Some people will then take on, oh, well, the Queen, we don't agree with the royal family. Well, you may not, but we are in a constitutional monarchy and she is the head of state. And don't you forget it. Because if you decide that you want to attack the head of state in Britain, then you would attack the head of state anywhere in the world. So don't be bloody righteous when you want to say, oh, yes, well, we will talk about Russia, or we'll talk about China, or we'll talk about some of the Eastern European countries which say they want to join the EU but don't seem to want to reform. Oh God, I'm having a wonderful morning this morning with my just because Robert hasn't come through again. All right, okay, the Times. 3 held by terror police after the fatal blast. The Mirror, a terror probe after taxi blast. Metro, health fears for the Queen. the Guardian, no, they take a different tack. They go back to last week when China and India, being the two greatest polluters, the most highly industrialized countries in the world at the moment, backed down after they said that they would make some pledges to cut back emissions. And then once they got home, I suppose what they did was they looked at those people who want them out of office. They said, well, this isn't the issue for it, as they backed down. But even Boris has expressed huge disappointment that those two countries particularly are not going to support any efforts to keep the environment safe. One thing I would say about big industrial countries is that it is much easier if you're not an industrial country to say we'll cut emissions than it is if you are a big industrial country, because you're saying to people we'll cut we'll cut your income, we'll cut your food, we'll cut your shelter, and so on and so forth, because what you are doing to some extent. One of the things that is interesting, I think, that we in this country have pledged, or Boris has pledged, that there'll be no more coal by 2040. But as our energy secretary, our energy correspondent, Stuart Dolby, points out, that unfortunately we can't stop using coal. A lot of our energy comes from wind power, which is excellent as long as it's wind. But there are many times during the night, during the summer, during various parts of the year when the wind simply drops. So the power is reduced. Where do we go to? Nuclear? Well, that's, we have to consider all the options. But at the moment, what Stuart believes is that the likelihood is, and there's every indication, that we will be using coal to support various power structures right up until the very last minute. It is now 6:53, 8:53, that's right, 8:53, coming up to the witching hour of 9 o'clock, when we'll say goodbye, and you can at least beg off and say, oh, well, at least we don't have to listen to Keith anymore. The Financial Times, it takes the dismay at the watering down of the COP deal. Incidentally, there is a local story which we should keep an eye on. It's local enough anyway, and that is Gatwick Airport, where the owners want to build a little extra onto a runway so that they can use two runways instead of one, and particularly one which goes against the prevailing winds. So you can land aircraft in a howling gale and do it safely. And let's see how many, 20,000 businesses across the southeast, in East and West Sussex, in Kent, and in Hampshire, have sent letters of support to the airport operator saying, yes, we need this, we need your airport, we need it for commerce, we need it for jobs, we need it for, so yeah, please get on with it. You have our support. On the other hand, you've got the environmentalists who say it's going to spoil the scenery, it'll change the environment, it will pump extra CO2 into the air, and so on and so forth. So there's a battle royal coming up there. But the Financial Times disappointed in the results of the Glasgow summit, and the eye is a rail plan scaled down in a blow for levelling up. The whole idea of this high-speed link is that businesses in the north will become competitive because they can get their goods to market very quickly, and the executives, for that matter, as quickly as those people in London and the southeast who are very close to the exports and the export market. and the export systems and the export infrastructure. So that was called leveling up. And it looks now as if it's not going to happen. And the Daily Star, snow way out. We're going to face an Icelandic barrage, and that's going to come within days, they say. The weatherman isn't getting too excited about it yet. However, it does look as if there is a cold front amassing somewhere over Iceland, and it's going to come roaring this way. And that we could expect snow, and we could expect very cold conditions. It doesn't look as if they're getting any warmer. Just over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've seen the temperatures go from 20, which isn't terribly warm, down to today 12. So we're very much seeing what's happening in terms of our own weather. And if that keeps up, it could be that we're going to get this icy blast. And it could be that we're going to get snow. And if the wind comes with it, then watch out. Then we know what winter conditions really are. It's 8:56. Just a little look back over the weekend when we honored the dead, and particularly of World War I, because that was the Great War, and that was the one where masses of soldiers were killed. The Second World War, many people argue, was worse because the death toll was greater. But within the numbers of that war, and particularly since there were flying rockets and bombs and air raids and so on and so forth, civilians are counted in the ranks of the fallen. And indeed, yesterday, it was interesting that there are several civilian organizations who had been invited to lay a poppy wreath. There were a couple that didn't show, but mostly they did. And that reflects the fact that civilians were killed in the Second World War. Okay, 8:57. I'm counting down. It sounds as if I want to leave you. I don't. But at this particular stage, I should be talking to Robert McDonald, who got out of his bed. He said, "Keith, I actually sleep in until 8 o'clock. What do you expect from me?" I said, "I expect you to get out of bed and come and help us, Robert. Come and give us your point of view." And what happens is he does all that, and we let him down. I mean, in the long run, we have to say we. Okay, it's the software isn't working, but it's we've let him down. So we apologize for that. But also, it's important that we hear the view of people other than me. I don't know, the mouth that roars, and indeed I always will. But I do remember many, many years ago, on one occasion I was wrong. Actually, it's the other way around. I remember on one occasion I was right, and I was permanently right. There is no such thing as permanence in debate. You're either ready to debate your point and defend your issue, or you're not. And if you're not, keep your mouth shut. Keep your bum free from Bostic or whatever it is that they use to stick themselves to roads and to bridges and so on. All right. So snow on the way. Perhaps what we'll do is we'll find January covered in snow. I've got some pictures of him when we had the last major phone call, snowfall, and very pretty he looks. That's January, by the way, behind me. He is a key member of the Mirador team. January is it's 8:59, so I've got to go. You'll be very pleased to know that I've got to go. But January is a key member of the Mirador team because he jogged us with history lessons from time to time. Very important lessons they are. And I played one the other morning, and we're going to play it again as we get towards Christmas. Is what was a medieval Christmas like? And if you think it was all jolly Christmas bells and feasting on pork and deer and swan, well, it's like today. One or two were, but they were in the minority. Let's hope that being in the minority, particularly when it comes to the Christmas turkey, isn't isn't something that's only for the few. Till Viv, and I see you a little later with Robert, but what I will see you is tomorrow morning, for sure. Till then, bye-bye.